she has been here for many years in the winter when the object was to escape the bad weather in her home state. And now she's come to Scottsdale to plunge herself into ours. So we'll see how that goes. But this is a story set in Arizona, although really in Tucson. But I did want to say before I stop that we're talking about the Afghan immigrant community in Tucson. But for many years, way before our war with Afghanistan, there has been an excellent Afghan community in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one of the two things they have done, which is remarkable, is lapis lazuli jewelry. If all of you know that gorgeous blue stone, the primary source for it is Afghanistan. At the other thing they excel at is weaving. And so there are some remarkable textiles, carpets, and so forth in a family. And I'm hoping that the current circumstances with tariffs and everything aren't going to destroy what really was a great way to employ people all over the world by this family. So the community you're talking about is much more current, right?
Yes. Okay. Oh, does mine even work? Does this sound okay? This works. This is so much fun. We're just torturing Patrick, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so we're up. It's all you. So I am a huge, huge fan of Isabella for both the background and the books, and I'm very excited for the latest Danny Vega. And I like anyone who can bring that much, not only just procedure, but spirit and the true kick-ass heroine.
Lots of violence.
Yeah. But they're really, really good at it, and that's what matters.
And for me, this is so much fun because not only do I enjoy reading Lisa's books, but I just enjoy Lisa. It's fun to hang out with her. And so now we get to kind of share this with you. And I really love this book. It's a departure in many ways. I mean, it's another Frankie Elkin, but it's so different. And I can't wait to sort of get into the inspiration. And it was very cool at the end when I was listening to the Audible where you actually explained some of this.
Oh, the
Maybe
acknowledgments. I thought you were going to start by giving them the end of the book, which is an interesting way to do a thriller. She's like, I really liked it at the end. And I'm like, that's a different way of doing this.
No spoilers. Yeah, right. Get the pesky details. But what I almost wonder if that's kind of a logical place to start talking about it was because you talked about what inspired you to write this story. And when I read the prologue, that is one of the most powerful prologues I've ever read. It was brilliant, and you could see the sheer amount of research that you put into it, which then again, when you listen to the afterword, you understand how and why. So maybe start there.
See, and this is why I love Isabella so much. So yes, of all the books I've written, everyone loves to talk about the acknowledgments in this one. In fact, I'm thinking that could be a new career path for me. I do love to do my research, and there are two people in the room that actually were part of the inspiration of this book. But there we go. There. So Ed and Dana, I met whale watching because that's where books come from, but of course. And they were talking about the volunteer work they do in Tucson, helping resettle refugees, and in particularly the work they were doing at that time with an Afghan family. And I think like a lot of people here in the room, I thought I knew what refugees were, and yeah, there's a global crisis and there are a lot of refugees out there. To hear the nuts and bolts, like what this experience truly is like, the number of challenges a family faces, the fact that refugees are legal, like it's an international designation, the federal government invites them in, even some of my terminology was not correct. But having said all of that, you have 90 days to become self-sufficient. And I think most of us can argue you can barely get a driver's license in 90 days. So these challenges are real. The work done by the volunteers is extraordinary. But also, with the help of Ed and Dana, if I was going to write a book about an Afghan refugee, well, then that's an experience I need to learn. So I end up interviewing so many refugees who are very gracious about sharing their time and their stories. And wow, I mean, some of the stories were so extraordinary, heartbreaking as you can imagine, but also at the end of the day, they're always about hope we remain a beacon of hope for most of the world's population. And the opportunity to get to come here and start a fresh life, even with all of those complications, it's like the winning lottery ticket. So the commitment and the desire to make this work and the gratitude, but at the same time, the struggles are so real. And you learn of all the things you can't talk about, which is always interesting when you're trying to research a book. You know, there are no resources for trauma. So let's not talk about trauma. Above all, do not ask questions about the refugee camps. It is just not something anyone's going to talk about. And it's almost like, it was interesting again as research, because I'm used to procedure. It's almost rude to ask that question. Now I'm going to re-traumatize these people. But hearing about the work that was going on, having these people be so gracious and sharing their stories, learning about organizations like No One Left Behind, which is a nonprofit that was founded by so many of our service people and the interpreters they worked with in Afghanistan that are still working to this day trying to get interpreters from both Afghanistan and Iraq back to this country. Even though our own services to help them get assimilated continue to decline. It was such a remarkable exercise in learning the human experience and the ways that, I think there's a line in the book, people hurt other people, but also in the ways people help other people. So that was very different than my normal research on, like, you know, how to track a fugitive in the woodlands, like totally new vibe.
It was, but incredibly richly drawn and rewarding to read. Again, just like even the setup of the characters, it was like hard to imagine that you hadn't spent time like in the refugee camp with them, the way that you talked about it. But then, of course, you learn later the incredible amount of research. And another thing I thought was really fascinating was the dedication. Yeah. And I think that that's also speaks to, you know, part of the motivation where, you know, it's dedicated to all of the U.S.-led forces and their interpreter, over 1 million people, that they tried to fight for a better country, and it didn't end well, but their sacrifice should never be forgotten. I thought that was an incredible dedication, you know, and it shows also when you were talking to the people like the Brigadier General that you spoke to, Kosh,
Yes.
who was an incredible resource for you.
That man was so kind. I mean, I WhatsApped him like 20 times a day. Do you believe in ghosts? I mean, just you go to write scenes. And of course, I'm so used when I do research, I like to be hands-on. So it was great to go to Tucson if you can write a book set in Tucson. But of course, the Frankie books only really work because Frankie is a missing person specialist trying to find someone if we care about the person she's trying to find. So I needed to have a way to bring this Afghan family, and particularly Sabera, to life. And that is through flashbacks of this life she once had. Because that's the other thing when I talk to people. It was a scale of loss that I just can't even begin to wrap my brain around. And Kabul fell in like 8 hours. It'd be like if New York City fell in 8 hours. And they even said, well, we knew there were things going on, but that was like out there. You know, we're the city, you know, we'll be fine. So to learn about these experiences, it was going back to Kosh like 100 times a day. He helped me come up with the names. And again, we're WhatsApping back and forth. And then in the end, we go to record the audio a few weeks ago. And my narrator comes to me and is like, okay, there's certain sites narrators use that we really trust translations. And we think they're really good. I'm getting 6 answers for all of these. So I had to go back to poor Kosh and I'm like, can you record this person's name? And then I think I was saying Sabera. He's like, no, Sabera. I'm like, could you do this other person's? And this poor guy basically had to record most of the book for us.
But your narrator is a genius.
Hillary's
because
amazing.
She did the British accent and the Afghan accent and the males and the females. And it was a pleasure to listen to because of her. So, okay, so we'll get into the story a little bit. I just wanted to talk about, you know, how she got into it, just because it's so unique and amazing for many of you who are just long-standing fans of Lisa's and fans of Frankie's too, it's like, get ready. This is going to be amazing, and you're going to be thrilled. So with a story, now this is in many ways it's kind of a typical Frankie. I have to find some one thing. And what I liked about it, so like in the first chapter, I mean, after the preliminaries in the first actual chapter of the story, she meets kind of her client, for lack of a better term, and then in chapter 2, she finds a place to stay, and I was really loving that in Tucson. I had no idea that housing was so expensive in Tucson. I thought it would be worse in Phoenix, but who knows?
I don't think there's affordable housing anywhere.
Yeah, probably not.
Frankie
Probably
goes
not.
from city to city, and every city I go to, this is when you start talking to locals. It's the first thing that comes up.
So she has to find a place to stay, as she always does, and of course she doesn't have a lot of money. And so, now does anybody here know what a herper is? Ah, okay. Some of you do. Yeah, well, it comes from the same root, the Latin root for herpetologist. Anybody know what a herpetologist is? Getting warmer? Yeah, there you go. Okay, snakes, reptiles, such lot. So, yeah, a herper loves those things, but Frankie does not love those things. And so, of course, as all authors do, what do? We torture our characters for fun and profit. So how did you decide to torture Frankie?
Well, it's funny when you go to write a series because, one, I didn't even know it was going to be a series. And then there are elements that just kind of take on a life of their own and become expected. Like in the very first Frankie book, there's a feral homicidal cat. The Piper, that's her roommate, which I'm not going to lie, was based on my neighbor's homicidal cat. And I am a cat person, and that cat hates me. Like, all I have to do is be on the front porch and the cat starts hissing. And I'm like, I've had cats my feelings are still hurt on the subject. So that was kind of an inside joke, but everyone really liked the cat. So then in the next book, there was a search dog. Then by the time we got to the remote atoll, when I was there, I did have a roommate, Krabby, and I loved Krabby. But see, now there has to be some kind of pet or animal companion. Well, when you start doing research on cities, okay, housing is not affordable. What are some tricks? And part of the research I like to do when I'm learning a new location is want ads and help ads. And you can start finding things like pet sitters or dog walkers or whatever, and it kind of gives you some ideas. So Frankie finds this desperate, I need a pet sitter, house sitter right now, start right now. And she's like, well, I'm going to guess based on that alone, we're not talking about something cute. But even then, to show up and discover it's some pythons, and then the character, I'm not going to lie, became my favorite, Petunia. The green iguana. And that's because one of my friends had iguanas for years. Not now, because thankfully I can still go to his house. And he had all these stories of, the iguanas love to be on your lap, and you can pet them. Then he brought an iguana to my office. I just gave the iguana my office for the day. It was a fair trade.
Yeah. Are they, can they be dangerous like that?
Well, so I'm not great with reptiles. Again, this is why it was fun to do with Frankie. So they bring their, a large male iguana that generally has been handled. And the couple who had him greeted me at the door with, he's having a really bad day. Don't touch him. I'm like, okay. This is fun. But at the end, I kind of everyone made a big deal. The skin does not feel the way you expect. Mm-hmm. Like I'm thinking something cold and a reptilian, and it's almost more like warm leather. Mm-hmm. So as far away as I possibly could, I'm like, you good iguana. Yeah. But yeah, he was apparently very restless and just cranky he was older. They're like, he just has bad days. I'm like, oh.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too, is all the characterization, all of the different characters that you populate your stories with. And this one had such a cast. And I thought, well, even the animals were characterized really well. And then the human types, honestly, now I have to ask you this, there was the cook, and honestly, was your model Julia Child? Because I was getting a vibe of Julia Child.
I wanted someone really flamboyant and over the top, because Frankie definitely collects interesting companions when Frankie goes places, because Frankie is interesting. and does well with other people that are interesting. Mainstream culture, normal, not so much her thing. And I was thinking of a drag queen. And then when the story behind it, he was a street kid. And so, well, she now, Jenny, has compensated by going huge into domestic. So not just this great chef and the housekeeper, but each day is a new kind of flamboyant maternal personality. So it's like which, Lucille Ball is one day. And, she talks about it. It's her suit of armor. And that she grew up without a family, and it's possible she's overcorrecting. But there's one of my favorite lines in the book is something to the extent where Frankie is talking about, so here we are, this dream team, a recovering alcoholic, a cross-dressing chef, an ex-con chauffeur driver, and a ballroom dancing parole officer. And we're all who stand between, this missing mother, this young mother, and, a terrible fate. Is it terribly depressing that we're all that she has? Or is it crazy uplifting that these 4 people are willing to do whatever they can to help this woman?
And see, I found it uplifting. And that was also one of my favorite lines. I thought about that a lot. And I was like, that is true. And it does show that we help each other sometimes, and for altruistic reasons. And
one of the big things when you start interviewing refugees and even the volunteers working on it, this comes up again and again and again, the people that go out of their way. And I was just talking with the executive director of No One Left Behind, because they're really struggling with on-the-ground resources right now. And he was talking about they just got in a bunch of, applicants, refugees from Afghanistan, and they had not even housing for them. And they kind of put out a message, and within 2 hours, they had everything set up for everyone. And some of these were people, they'd never heard of No One Left Behind. They knew nothing. They just felt the need to be there and to help these people who are trying to build a new life.
Yeah, and it's so moving, especially when a lot of these refugees are people who helped U.S. service people and service from other countries. I mean, they risked their lives to help us help them, and so now it's kind of like paying it back. And the other thing I thought was interesting, and I mean, obviously no spoilers, but it's easy to imagine that when Sabera comes to this country, and this does happen, I think, in other refugee communities, is that sometimes you bring your trouble with you. It follows you. And that is, I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that, there's people, there's danger for her. And it's dangerous to help her, but they're willing to do it.
I felt writing this book, clearly I became very fascinated, and I thought it was such a great story worth telling of what's going on with refugees in our country, partly because of the hope behind it and that there is so much good going on out there. But I also thought it was very important. At the end of the day, I'm a thriller writer, and I'm trying to bring a story that's very universal. And I can't think of anything more universal than family. So the whole time I was writing the story, my thought is, at its heart, this is still a domestic thriller. It is a young mother at risk who disappears after only 10 weeks. It is a much older, kind of forbidding husband who doesn't seem to care his young wife has gone missing, and shouldn't that be suspicious? And it's this 4-year-old girl who has only known trauma. She was born in a refugee camp. Who desperately needs her mother back. And I thought those were the stakes that make it work. But it's also the universal element. The other thing, when you start talking to people from other cultures, other countries, there's no one out there that doesn't want a better future for their children. That is universal.
That absolutely is, and it definitely comes through in the story. And as you're kind of, you go back and forth between the different characters, as seeing it from different perspectives, and then we go and we also get different parts of the timeline, and you sort of gradually reveal how Sabera came to the United States, which I think is really a good way to do it, because it's not all up front. it's the mystery goes on, and then gradually as you get there, you're like, oh, I understand now. And it makes you wonder, and I wonder about this too, as you were interviewing all the different people in your research, everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And so many people have fascinating stories that we will never know. And I just wonder about that when you heard all the different stories and you mentioned that they touched you.
And there's so many things I thought I knew that I didn't. I mean, even learning about the interpreters, like, you know, our servicemen, people are over there and they're still having like a tour of duty. You're on so many days, you get a few days, you know, of R&R to off, but the interpreters did not. Most did not go home. It would have put their families in danger. So they were just there. I mean, they were embedded with us day after day after day after day. And like, you know, the military people I talked to said it was an amazing show of endurance. And they were putting their villages, their family, everyone at risk. And they did it because they believed their country could be a better place. And they were willing to fight for it too.
Yeah. And it was for a while until it didn't work after that. But now the other thing I think was interesting, another subject that you touch on in different ways is neurodivergence. But in a fun and fascinating and really cool way, different characters exhibit different kinds of neurodivergence. And you did something that's close to my heart with the puzzles and codes. You know how I love those.
She's still better at it than me, though.
Well, you got help from a mathematician.
Yeah, it's true. My hiking partner is a PhD in mathematics. You will have no idea how much I abuse her. She's like, if she'd realized there was a career in thriller, she totally would have gone that route.
No, I would love that kind of. I have to sit there and do my own, and it takes hours sometimes to do the puzzles.
I'll
and
loan her
codes.
out for tequila. We can talk.
Okay, very good. I like that. I like it. But yeah, and then just the other thing too was fascinating. Again, with your characterization and the way that you draw out different aspects of the characters. Kind of what inspired you about making characters who thought differently and had totally different thought patterns than most people, and kind of how did you land on that and what made you think of those?
Well, the whole thing started because, again, a lot of my research was interpreters. And I ended up reading all these articles on linguistics and also people with just, with that aptitude for languages. And I think it was an interview with maybe a military commander of some kind talked about it was crazy where the talent came from. Like they would go into these villages in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan. And when we say middle, you mean middle of nowhere. There's like 20 people and 100 sheep. And he'd be like, there'd be an 8-year-old that could speak 6 languages. And it's like, you don't have the internet. You don't see people from other countries. How do you possibly? It's like, oh, we went to the market and there was this guy talking and, I've been able to speak English ever since. And then one day we had to shear sheep and this guy came and he spoke French. So now I speak French. And that fascinated me, I think really out of envy, because I don't even do English properly most of the time. And then I read articles, these other people who, some of them worked in refugee camps. Some have worked in like community centers in New York, where it's almost limitless, the languages they know. They need to just listen. So let someone just talk. And after about 10 to 12 minutes, like the pattern just is clear to them. I think I just want that gift.
Polyglot.
Yes.
polyglot,
But the extreme examples, because there's like the polyglots who, I have an aptitude for learning language. And then there's like the off the charts gifted.
And I had not heard of that level until I read the book. And then I'm like, wow, okay, so there are people who can pick up a language and have a lot of command of it from a relatively brief interaction.
Yeah, they compare it to like the ear for music. The 4-year-old that can listen to a song and then just go play it on the piano. It's like, how? But language and music often are tied together in the brain and so there's people that's what it is for them, but it's listening to notes of a language.
And then, of course, you have to mention in your book, hypergraphia.
Yes.
It's another fun thing.
I saw Hamilton. That dude totally had hypergraphia. How many, at the end of Hamilton, you learn how many written works he had in the course of his life. It's like thousands again, envy. as novelists, I only wish that, at the end of the day, I produced too many pages. Oh, dear me. Wouldn't you like that?
I would love that. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, obviously sleep goes to the wayside, but but I thought that was just another kind of cool thing to see, kind of how that would play itself out, and then you incorporate that into the plot, which is also really amazing and fun
and totally unplanned.
Oh yeah.
This was the book I rewrote the most, or I wrote iteratively. Like I'd get a certain place and I'd get stuck, and then I'd realize what I'd done wrong. But it also went out on a limb. So Zara, the little girl, can remember everything, but also seems to have a head for riddles and codes. So when Frankie first tries to talk to the 4-year-old, thinking it'll be like a little kid, Zara greets her with this whole, there is a, what is it? Would I start with the key or the lock? I can't. Oh yeah, here's a lock that has no key for a key that has no lock. And that's one of those phrases that just came to me hiking, and I had no idea what it meant and even what the answer was, as much as I know it just had to be in the book. So I'm so happy it worked out, but there was possibly a lot of panic down to the wire with that one.
No, it worked out really well. And it was like the first time it was mentioned, I kept thinking about it too. And I'm like, ooh, this is a good riddle. I like riddles, and I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I sent in 100 pages, and the editor's like, so what is the answer to that? And I'm like, you must read more to find out.
Yeah, why not? Keep everybody in suspense, including your editor and your publisher. Yeah, that works. But it came together really nicely, and that was
Isn't that the
fun.
joy of when our jobs, the writing actually
Yes.
does? There's that day
Yes.
when we didn't know what we were doing, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I got this.
Actually, I had one of those moments yesterday morning. I was on the elliptical, and I was going through, because it's a monotonous activity, and I was going through a plot problem I was having working on a scene. And all of a sudden, I literally shouted it out, because I was like, how am I going to get this information? And I was like, oh, dialogue, that's it. I need more dialogue. That it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure my husband thinks I'm nuts. But
Active meditation.
Yeah.
That's my hiking. You're elliptical.
there you go.
And authors always talk about driving cars.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, again, because you don't really think about it, which says a lot about drivers. Maybe you shouldn't drive around other authors. But,
Yeah, it's a definite danger. I cannot tell you, I do kind of get into the zone. How many times I have passed my exit because I am thinking so deeply.
Yes.
I just keep going on, and the next thing you know, I'm like, wow, I think I missed my exit like 4 exits ago. And and I'm late and everything, and I didn't.
but you solved the book problem.
I did.
So it totally works.
I
See,
did.
it's worth it.
The shower is another one. I mean,
Yeah.
there's several places famous for thinking, but those are the author insider things that,
So
that-
we can't drive. We're relatively smelly, but please hang out with us.
and sometimes we have unruly animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that make trouble for us and things like that. So
How much do you plot? Because you're more methodical than I am, because I never know anything.
It's you know what? It depends on the book. Some of them, well, I like to say, I know you're more of a sort of, you generate your ideas as you go.
Insane. She means insane.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and this is the thing too, and I've discovered this to be more and more the case. Is I will say, of course, I outline, because what else would I have to deviate from?
I like that.
So I invariably deviate, and but I always have to have some idea where I'm going to get started.
Well, you have,
That's all.
I mean, really amazing procedure and really intense action sequences. Like, do you have to choreograph?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Choreograph.
Choreograph.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Choreograph
Yeah.
that. See, I can't even do English most days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely do, or you can end up doing things that are physically impossible. So, and then I have to, as a woman in law enforcement, I have to make sure that I accurately portray what a woman in law enforcement would do. And actually, this is another thing about Frankie that I really love, and there's times I am tempted, because when I always write these police procedural thriller type things, and you're so hemmed in with laws and procedures.
The
and
procedure.
I am jealous of Frankie sometimes. I'm like, she's just going to get it done. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's true. 25, police procedures later, I'm like, let's write about someone not in law enforcement. No reason.
It has to be liberating for you.
Yeah, though also, if you can do anything, what do you do? The rules give you a structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, because part of the charm, I think, of the Frankie series are the changing locations. So this one, is it because of the friends you met in Tucson that
Yes.
were in Tucson? But when you started, it was Boston, right? The
First book was Boston and then Wyoming.
Right,
And
and
then
then-
I went on a great trip to a remote atoll, so that
Right.
became a book. But what I loved about Tucson is I didn't really know Tucson at all, and how multicultural and international and hiking. Like, I just didn't even associate that. So again, that became one of those really cool research projects where I didn't know how much I didn't know.
Right. But so do you, if you're going forward with this series, are you choosing locations because of places you've gone or just places that interest you? Do you have any sort of, why was it Boston? For Frankie's first. Why was it Boston?
Well, Boston's a comfort zone for me because I live near there. But I think it works either way. There's certain subjects, like if you're doing a really big hiking book, Wyoming made more sense because it's, frankly, way bigger mountains and more dangerous. Versus I love my White Mountains. And I swear Mount Washington kills its fair share each year. But, it's not as exciting as Wyoming. So there's some times when the subject matter dictates the location. But then there's things like Palmyra, when I went to this remote atoll that was straight out of an Agatha Christie movie. I'm like, oh, no, I just have to use it for its own sake.
So, right. So if you're going forward, can you give us a clue what next city it might be?
No.
Okay.
I just like saying no. My kid went off to college. I don't get to say it enough anymore.
Well, in the acknowledgement, she did tease it a little.
It doesn't actually matter so much as the fact that she's going to go somewhere. And, it's a really interesting thing to be able to write a series with the same character but keep changing the location. I think about Nevada Bar and how brilliant it was that Anna Pigeon was a park ranger and she could go to a different national park. So you were, in Isle Royale in Michigan, or you were down in the Caribbean, or you were out at Yosemite or something. There's a new TV thing, in fact. Did you notice that? Eric Bama, is that his name? Bana? First one was in Yosemite, and my husband and I took a bet as to whether he was going to solve it and stay in Yosemite, or whether the solution to it would require him to leave. And I realized that he'd picked up on Nevada, and he had to leave in the end. Spoiler, sorry. He had to leave at the end because we get to go to another park. And so what you've done is that same sort of thing where we're always going to have the fun of going somewhere new.
I like to travel. So, and I'm learning more and more. And I think I couldn't do this in the beginning of my career because setting is the thing I actually struggle with. But I'm better at it now. And I feel like with the Frankie books, setting is almost a character. And when I started thinking of it that way, it clicked. And then, there's a lot of fun characters out there, which is a lot of fun locations. Now, you're mostly New York with the Danny Vega ones, aren't you?
Yeah, different. All my series are set in a different city.
Yeah, so that's how you get to move about.
4 different cities, 4 different series. So
That's a lot of procedure and jurisdiction stuff to learn.
I have to research because every law enforcement agency is different. So I have to research every single. See, you're not the only research lover. I love to research too.
Yeah, but she actually knows what she's talking about. I really am just making stuff up.
I discovered if you just take a cop out and get them a beer or a coffee, they'll just tell you whatever you need to know.
So there's also a hint in this book that Frankie may, she needs to be a lone wolf, basically, to do what she's doing. But when we see her at the very opening of the book, she's with somebody that she clearly doesn't want to leave. But then the call, the mission overtakes her. So, how do you manage, how are you going to balance her going forward between being a lone wolf and having any connection?
And I don't know the answer. I don't have a story arc for Frankie. I kind of feel it's one of the things we'll all know when we get there. Like, it will just feel right. I mean, on the one hand, I don't think Frankie is the type to just, I feel her definition of happiness is doing what she's doing. Like, it'd be weird if all of a sudden she became domesticated. But that also doesn't mean there's other versions of that or meeting someone else. I don't know. I figure we'll all find out when we get there. See, this is how I plot and plan, just like that. If you want to come up at the book signing and give me any hints or suggestions.
Isabella, tell us a little bit about your upcoming book in September with Jeffrey Deaver. It'll be the second book that the two of you are writing together.
Yeah, so one of the 4 series is I write it with Jeffrey Deaver. There we both are, isn't that charming? So, but yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's the Sanchez and Heron series. So Carmen Sanchez is a federal agent, and Jacoby Heron is a professor. And so they are kind of forced to work together in the beginning, and then they grudgingly, I mean, they really don't like each other in the beginning, but then they grudgingly work together. And it's kind of fun because here you have a Latina law enforcement type paired with a professorial type. I guess you guys can't imagine what might have inspired us. But it's been a lot of fun, and we really, because writing is a lonely sort of profession. I mean, you're there, you're in your own head, you're in front of the computer all the time. Neither one of us had ever written with anybody ever. And we'd been friends for a long time, and it was like, let's try writing it together. And it turns out it's so much fun. It's just a lot of fun to bounce ideas, and, you know, and then it's a great brainstorming thing.
That part I think would be very cool.
It is fun. And there were times, especially beginning when we started creating, because we wanted to create something completely from scratch. And we would be on the phone for over 4 hours sometimes. Wow. You should have heard it, though. The brainstorming, it was just incredible. It was a lot of fun.
I try to brainstorm with my dogs, but they're not terribly good at it. I'm not going to lie.
They're not keeping up. Yeah. So, but I'm looking for, and we'll be, Jeff and I, our only appearance is going to be here at the Pen. That is, this year we're not going to have a tour like an in-person. We're doing virtual. Last year we went in-person all over. So the Poison Pen, this is it. This is your only chance to
Monday,
see us together.
September 8th. Right here.
That's going to be awesome.
I
That's going
know.
to be so
It'll
much
be
fun.
Wonderful. Jeffrey's one of my favorite people. Occasionally he comes out just to celebrate my birthday in December because there's hardly anything else that is going on right close to Christmas. My parents were not thinking of me when clearly they were not thinking of me. Worked out that way. But he's a wonderful writer. And you could never write with him because he is, Lisa, he is the most thoroughly outlining, organized, whatever. Yeah. I always envision, he said, I'm sure I've remembered this before, but at one event that we were here, somebody asked him about the outlining process and revision. And Jeffrey said if they would put up a trapeze and he could hang by his heels over the printing press while it was spinning, he would still be editing his book.
Yeah. They have to take them away from us, I think.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. We're both perfectionists, and I think all authors are. And it's like by the time you're done and the book's out in the world, you'll still think to yourself, oh, I could have done it this way, or I could have phrased that better. I mean, you're always doing it.
But being a published author, that's the key, right? Published, right? Otherwise, you could just be writing forever. So at some point, you have to let it go.
So we're both internationally best-selling authors. We have books in other countries, and people might not know is each country has their own schedule often. So France is a major market for me, but they're actually several books, which is to say several years behind. So I was just over in France in, I think it was March, for a book that now for me is 4 years old. So I'm not going to lie, I had to read it on the plane. Because the French ask really, really detailed and thematic, and like thrillers for them are high art. And I couldn't even remember the names. But I hate doing it, one, because I'm terrified someone's going to like look and say, didn't you, what are you? But every other sentence, I'm like, oh, I could have written it this way. So it does just kind of grate.
Yeah, they do have a different schedule. We've been lucky in that fortunately, like the new books with Jeff, you know, some of the other countries picked up pretty fast, but others, they're still in the process. And then some of my other series, you know, like this one that just starting to come out, you know, even though we're 3 books in. So yeah, it is. It's really different in other countries. So.
You know what? We have giveaways to do.
Yes.
tonight, but why don't you see about a few questions from the audience?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm hoping that keeping one of them off might improve the sound, so I keep turning it up. Let's start over again. We have some things to give away tonight, but we ought to give you guys time to ask some questions. So, Isabella, would you repeat the question, because otherwise the virtual audience can't understand it. So, hang up, go. Whoever wants to ask a question.
Yes.
Hi, Christina.
I see you, Christina.
Okay, save me time from looking this up while I'm reading. Can you share the meaning behind at least one character?
Can you share the meaning behind at least one character's name?
Well, I can give you the meaning behind Frankie's name. You mean the names in Dari? So Zara is what is it? The beautiful one, is that right? See, this is again now. This is a year and a half ago. Can we talk about the meaning and the names of the book I'm writing now? Yes. There's a couple things that went into making the names. One was I wanted to have some meaning behind, and again, working with Kosh did a lot of this. What would be common, but that gets to be a misnomer too. And in Afghanistan, you have a lot of regions, you have a lot of ethnicities, you have tribes. So like, even if you tried to Google like a popular Afghan name for girls, well, not in Kabul or not with this background. So there's a lot of nuances that go into the name. And then one of the things my publisher said, they wanted names that we would have a fighting chance at being able to pronounce when you see them on a page. It's hard as a reader if you're looking at something that's so exotic you can't wrap your mind again. Again, poor Kosh, I just abused this man, and he was so kind about it. And we've never met. I think we're hoping I'll get to see him at my event in Maryland. It'll be our first time meeting in person. People are very kind.
Yeah, they are. Other questions?
I know you hinted that Frankie probably won't settle down, but will her and Detective Williams meet up?
Will she wants to know, will Frankie and her, I have to repeat all the questions. She wants to know, will Frankie and her detective meet up?
You like all the sex books, don't you? I know where we're going with this one. I do not think Frankie's story is done. And I think it'd be fun to have Frankie in Boston. And I think it'd be fun to have Frankie and Dee Dee also in Boston.
Maybe Detective will surprise her.
I think there's some fun stuff to be had here still, yes.
Yes.
So since you mentioned Dee Dee, there is a chance of a crossover possibly?
Is there a chance of a crossover with Dee Dee Warren?
I think it would be fun. So I don't get, again, too far ahead, but we know I've done crossovers in the past. And I don't think that characters should have to stay in one little silo. I mean, we're creating universes. You are, I am. It's fun to bring them all together, right?
Yeah, it is. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. All the way in the back. Hold on. Okay. Right there. What are you working on now?
Well, so just, truth in advertising, I'm actually not working on a Frankie book right now. I had an idea. So I started out really with the Gothics. All my first books were domestic suspense. I loved reading the Gothics. And I had this idea I was reading something again. See, that's where it all starts. You read something and about, so it's a mysterious young couple that go to the mountains of New Hampshire and buy a dilapidated lodge that happens to be the site of a very famous unsolved crime from 30 years ago. And there's allegations of ghosts. There's a stray dog named Dog that knows things no dog, let alone stray dog named Dog, should know. It's really been a lot of fun. It's kind of going more old school Rebecca-ish.
Wow, that is fun. Okay, what else do we? Okay, right here. Yes.
So, because we brought up Dee Dee, I'm sorry, just going back to it. Bonita has lived rent-free in my head since I've thought about her. I just want to know, is she doing okay? Is she
Aww.
disgusting? I want all the best for her in life. I know she's fictional, but I love her with my entire heart.
Okay,
that
we
is
have a
very- oh,
Bonita
yes, sorry.
fan that
Yes.
needs an update on Bonita.
Yes. And I think about Bonita all the time too. Isn't it really fun? I think of your characters. I think of all sorts of, what are they up to these days? it would be fun to reference in a book. It also, don't tell anyone because I hate writing short stories, it would be a fun little project on its own. So someday when I can't write a novel, I'll think of Bonita. Stay tuned.
I like it. Yes, back there.
Not yet familiar with your previous books, but it was mentioned that the structure of this book is different than the other ones. Can you expand on that for just a moment?
How is this book different from the other one structurally?
I think one of the important parts in this book that made it different was I needed to bring a family's experience in Afghanistan and in refugee camps alive. Because the thing with writing is you have to show, not tell. So if I just have Frankie talking to people saying, oh, you know, it was really bad over there, or, ooh, you know, we heard things about these refugee camps and they're not great, that would be very flat. So this book, even though it's primarily Frankie and Frankie's point of view, which is traditionally what you see, you do get all these sequences from Sabera, the mother's point of view, because I needed a way to make her world and her experiences, particularly, and this won't be a shocker because this is a thriller, yes, it is some aspects of the past that have everything to do with what's going on now. So you have to also set the stage for all of that.
And it was beautifully and artfully done without interfering with the pacing at all. So that's like a master level, feat that she pulled off there. You'll enjoy
I
it.
just am buying her a lot of drinks after this. Actually, I bought her a lot of drinks before this. No.
Anything else before we? Any other questions? Oh, right here. Yes.
How do you balance research with writing? I find it very, like once I go down the research hole, then I can't write. There's no time left or whatever. How do you do that?
How do you balance research and writing, avoiding the rabbit hole?
And it's true. Research is fun and fascinating and good for a book. And then at a certain point, it's sheer procrastination because it's so much easier than writing the book. I try to give myself, it's kind of like we talked about with editing, a cutoff date. Because you can always learn more, particularly in this day and age. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, and this is why I say being a novelist is like toddler management, where you're both the toddler and management. You have to take yourself out and you have to have a good heart-to-heart. Like, is this really, truly necessary for the book, or are you just procrastinating? And I can research forever, so I really basically say by, November 1 or whatever, you have to start writing. And then I still have an issue where the first draft of the book, I'm going to put in too much of my research because I learned it and I want to show off. And then when I realize that's killed the pacing, I take too much of it back out and now it doesn't make any sense. But the third time, we're talking 35 years later, people, the third time I can get my book right.
The third time, it reminds me, there have been times where I've people have asked me about my writing pace, and I'll say, well, you know what? I write 3 books a year, but I only publish 1. I think it's the same thing.
Well, thank you all very, very much for your attention. Let's give our authors. We're going to do that next. Yep. Oh, right.
Thank you, everyone.
So I need John. How many numbers? 38. Thank you. So I'm going to start. We do have a grand prize, but we also have some other prizes. So Isabella, since I have this advanced reading copy of your book, why don't you pick a number between 1 and 38?
Okay. 17.
Ah, all right. You might just want to see me with. Well, all right. If you want to come up and get it, that'd be.
Come on down.
If I get off this chair, I won't climb back up. So I'm sort of stuck. All right. Let me dig in here and see. Oh, Lord. There we go. So I have 2 books from your part of the country. One of which, this is actually Michael Carita, and one of the most amazing books. Right, and this book is set in Maine. I did a virtual event with him on Sunday, which you can watch on our Facebook or YouTube, and the signed copies are coming in, but we only have a few left. This is a book that does 1962, and when I pointed out to them, this is all research for all of you guys. I was actually a college graduate and married with children in 1962, so my life. But he does capture that Cold War paranoia, and he pairs it with AI. So the story has a whole thing going on today and then, and it would only work in a very remote coastal part of Maine. It's just a brilliant book. I loved it. So pick a number between 1 and 38, not 17.
No. 33.
Oh, look. All right. Another book. Sorry, I know this is awkward. I should get up, but if I don't, it'll be terrible. Okay. And I have one more set in not New Hampshire, but Vermont. And I don't know if you know, Sarah, but this is the second book. First one was called Agony Hill. It, too, is set in the 1960s, 1965. And it has a local, it has a woman who has been away working mysteriously, probably for the CIA, who has come back, and then has an incoming law enforcement guy. So it's a small town, but at the same time, it has, all these externals. She writes so well about New England and Vermont. It's just absolutely wonderful. And we do have autographed copies up in the front, but Hunter's Heart Ridge is the name of this book. And I recommend buying the paperback Agony Hill before, because there's some really good stuff that happens that if you read this book first would spoil it. It's only 2 books. It's not like this is book 11, so it's not that hard. All right, Isabella, back to you.
Okay. Number 4.
Oh, good. Okay, a new author for you. You bet. And I have one more, and then we have a grand prize. And my one more, if I can pull it out, this is a debut novel by a 9th generation person living in Appalachia in the Blue Ridge Mountain area. Those of you who might remember The Best of Sharon McCrum,
Oh, I loved her.
or Julia Kelly, her wonderful book set in West Virginia. This is a book like that, and this is I compared it because this woman, a former Air Force special investigator called Annie, is barely making it as a private investigator, and she is called, like Frankie, to find a missing person back home. She's in Kentucky, but the missing person is in kind of a fictional version of a town near Asheville. So this is a really neat book to read with Lisa's series. So this time you get to call a number.
21.
Oh, good. Okay, wonderful. Now we have a grand prize, which Lisa's publisher has donated to us. It has various things in it, and I know, among other things, it has a box of Sphinx dates because they came to my house, and I almost opened them and ate them. Then I remembered they really belonged to Lisa. There we go.
Code book?
Ooh,
Code book series. I don't actually know.
okay.
H2O. Oh, a humidifier.
Shaped
Well,
like a
perfect.
cactus.
Shaped like a cat. Oh, yeah, Tucson. Okay, I'm getting it.
Tucson.
It's like, I don't, why is there a humidifier? Nope, I totally knew all about this.
Love it.
All right, so we need a number?
You do, and you can pick any number. We don't have to, the fact they got a free book should not prevent them from getting a grand prize, but it's up to you.
All right, I'm going to do 4 plus 4 plus 7. What is that?
Wow, 18? 4 plus 8 plus 7 of 15.
I need more
Dang
cribbage
it.
players in the room.
Yeah, wow.
Who here wins at cribbage? Oh,
Yeah, right. Ah, there we go.
Wonderful.
That's
Congratulations. Right. And thank you, Sharon, for finding that beautiful pink bag, which I didn't know we owned. So that's great. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming. If you'd like now this is the Move the Furniture stage of our event, where if you will pack up your chairs and move them that way, line up by number, and I'm sure Lisa will be delighted to sign your books.
She said she might need to send me to go reserve the table. It's possible. So we'll see. We'll see. Depends. Depends on how.
This chair, I'm telling you, I cannot ever get out of it.